You found a warm jade clasp among the mass graves, and since then, the nightmares haven't stopped. The old hunter told you it was the life eye of a 1,000-year-old flying jiangshi. It's tracking your scent, hunting you down. Your village was massacred. Your sister's blood stained your hands. On the brink of death, a Taoist gave you a bronze arrowhead. Only pure yang blood can destroy evil. You shot the arrow into your sister's chest with your own hands, coated the tip with her blood. Just as the jiangshi tore open your chest, you smiled. The blood-soaked arrowhead pierced its life eye. The two of you vanished in the same blaze. All that remained on the cliff wall was a mural of your final struggle. The jade clasp, warm like fresh flesh carved from something still alive, was wedged between the rotting knuckles of a half-decomposed corpse deep in the burial grounds. You should have done what you always did, kick aside the scattered bones and walk through that death-soaked land without looking back. But that glimmer, gentle and strangely alive, hooked your gaze and then your hand. The moment your fingertip touched it, a faint but unmistakable pulse shot from your fingertips straight to your heart. It was so fast it felt like an illusion, yet every hair on your body stood on end. You wanted to throw it away immediately, but it was too late. The heartbeat stopped. The clasp lay in your palm, cool and slick like the scales of a cold-blooded creature. But something inside it held a disturbing warmth. You clenched it tight. A strange, dragging pressure settled heavy on your chest. That night, the nightmares began. Not the blurry shadows of childhood fears, but suffocatingly vivid horrors, stinking of rot and blood. A twisted humanoid form floated in the impenetrable dark, moving so fast it left only the screaming hiss of shredded air on your retina. Every silent dive came with splashes of thick, hot red at the edge of your vision, and the wet crunch of bones being crushed like twigs loud and right beside your ear. Each time, you woke screaming, drenched in cold sweat. That jade clasp was pressed against your damp chest, like a brand. Its eerie warmth pierced skin and bone, reminding you of what you'd brought back. Fear wrapped around your throat like vines. You stumbled through the dark to the edge of the village, to the lonely hut of the old hunter. You pounded on the door like mad. It creaked open a crack, revealing his weathered face etched by mountain winds and decades of dread. His cloudy eyes swept across your face, then froze on the spot you instinctively clutched your chest. He gasped, sharp and sudden, like he'd been bitten by a viper. His hunched frame shook violently, nearly collapsing. You! His bony finger trembled like a leaf in a storm, pointing at you. You went to the burial grounds? Took something you shouldn't have? Panicked, you pulled out the jade clasp. It lay in your sweat-soaked palm, its faint inner glow brighter in the dim light like the slumbering eye of something evil. The moment he saw it, every drop of color drained from his face. He seized your arm with terrifying strength, his nails nearly digging into your flesh. His voice was raw and ragged, each word cold as the grave. The life eye. That's its life eye. The flying jiangshi feeds on living blood, immune to blade or bullet, flies through the air, vanishes underground. Without that thing, it's blind, lost, mad. It's looking for it, smelling it out. Whoever holds it, it'll find and rip apart, grind their bones to dust. You brought it here. You led it to the village. Terror crushed your heart in an instant. You could almost hear your blood freeze. The old hunter's eyes were drowning in hopelessness. He shoved you out the door with all the strength he had left, roaring. Go! Get out! Run as far as you can! Don't look back! Don't worry about us! Just go! Bang! The battered wooden door slammed in your face. shutting out that doomsday-stricken face. You collapsed onto the ground, boneless. The jade clasp tumbled into the mud, glowing faintly. The old man's desperate shouting still rang in your ears, buzzing like a swarm of hornets in your skull. Li-Fi, jiangshi, rip apart, grind to dust. Every word reeked of rust and blood. You scrambled to grab the searing hot jade. It burned against your palm like a tumor ready to explode. Run! You had to run! Leave the village! Leave everyone! That thought scorched your mind like a white, hot brand, making you tremble. You struggled to your feet, legs like noodles, stumbling in a wild dash toward the village gate. The night wind slapped your face with icy fingers, but it couldn't blow away the dread crushing your chest. You'd barely cleared the sparse woods at the village edge when a scream inhuman, high-pitched, and agonized ripped through the silence like a blade. Short, sharp, and filled with unspeakable pain and despair, it pierced your eardrums and stabbed into your soul. You knew that voice, the old hunter. You froze. Your heart felt gripped by a cold, merciless hand. Against all reason, you turned, and you saw hell. From the village direction, those scattered, sleepy lanterns in the dark, one by one, under some invisible, horrifying force, burst and died. Every extinguished light was followed by a scream, sudden, brief, bone-chilling. The cries came like a storm, old men's groans, women's shrieks, children's terrified wails all tangled together, all abruptly cut off, and then silence. That heavy, suffocating silence before death. A vague, enormous shadow, so twisted it didn't look human, flashed into view just before the lights went out. It hovered above the village, limbs contorted and unnatural, moving with impossible speed. Each time it appeared, it dropped precisely on a spot where light or voices still remained. No sounds of struggle, just the thunder of houses being torn apart, wood beams cracked, walls crumbled. And then came the wet, sickening splatter of fluids, the reek of blood thick, choking rush towards you on the freezing wind, making you gag. "Brother!" A voice you knew warped by terror, slammed into your mind like a red-hot needle. Your little sister. That one word shattered the last dam of reason. Run? Leave? Throw the jade away? All the old hunter's desperate warnings were nothing against her, scream like a piece of paper in a fire. Your mind went completely blank. Only one thought remained. Your sister. You let out a roar, so raw, so guttural, half despair, half fury that you didn't even recognize it as your own. Like a wild beast robbed of its cub, you spun around and stumbled back toward the village being swallowed by death. The ground beneath your feet was slick with warm, viscous liquid. Every step came with a nauseating squelch. The thick stench of blood mixed with dirt and ruptured guts filled your nose and mouth. Every breath felt like swallowing rotting flesh. Severed limbs, discarded like trash, littered your path. You stepped on a cold, tiny hand. You kicked aside half a familiar face, frozen in terror that was Ya from next door. You forced yourself to look away, your stomach heaving. Tears and cold sweat blurred your vision. Driven only by instinct, you staggered toward the crumbling remains of your home. "Sister!" Your voice was hoarse. Like a broken drum, its cry echoed in the deathly still village. "Brother," came a faint reply, barely a whisper, from beneath the rubble of collapsed adobe and shattered beams like the last breath of a drowning soul. You lunged toward the sound like a madman. Your hands were instantly shredded by splinters and coarse debris. You didn't care. You dug and clawed desperately. Fingernails peeled back, finger bones cracked against stone, but you felt nothing. At last, you saw her pinned from the waist down by a massive beam. The soil beneath her had turned pitch black from blood. Her little face was as pale as paper. Her lips trembled. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were now wide with terror and pain, locked on you. "Brother, I'm scared it hurts." Her voice was thread-thin, trembling on the edge of death. Your heart was being ripped apart. You tried in vain to lift the heavy beam, it didn't budge. You knelt beside her, clutching her freezing hand, babbling. "Don't be scared. I'm here. I'll get you out of here." You reached out, trying to pull her upper body from the pool of blood, anything to get her out. Just as your fingers brushed her shoulder, wham! A bone-chilling wave of cold, like a deluge of icy water, crashed down over your head. The air solidified so heavy you couldn't breathe. Above the rubble, the blood-drenched night sky suddenly twisted without warning. A figure appeared out of nowhere, floating less than a yard off the ground, silent and still, as if it had always belonged in this cursed space. Moonlight reluctantly outlined its shape, tall, gaunt, wrapped in what looked like a patchwork of tattered dark leather. The garment was soaked with brown stains and reeked of corpses and fresh blood. Its skin, under the moonlight, had an unnatural texture, like rusted metal fused with decayed wood, shriveled and stretched tight over jagged bones, lifeless. And its head, no hair, just a few stringy, rotting strands stuck to the bald scalp. That face, you couldn't even call it a face. Where the features should be were sunken, deformed pits, as if someone had violently smoothed them away. The only clear feature was a massive gash where the mouth should be like an axe had split it open. Inside, pure darkness. It opened and closed soundlessly, greedily sucking in the death-laden air. An invisible weight, icy and merciless, slammed down on your head and shoulders like a mountain crashing down. Every bone in your body groaned under the pressure. Your heart pounded like a war drum. Blood threatened to burst from your veins. Terror seized you completely. You couldn't move, couldn't think. This was the flying jiangshi. That featureless face just pits where eyes should be slowly turned toward you, creaking like rusted gears. At last, that hollow gaze locked onto you, or more precisely, onto the jade clasp burning brighter and hotter through your bloodied shirt. Its glow pierced the cloth, casting a strange, pulsing crimson light across the ruins. The jiangshi's gaping maw suddenly stretched wide, as if trying to swallow the entire night sky. No sound came out, but a torrent of visible gray-black miasma, thick with decay, burst from the darkness of its mouth like a raging poison dragon racing straight toward you and your sister beneath the rubble. "No!" Your eyes nearly burst from your skull. A scream of despair ripped from your throat. Survival instinct and your desperate need to protect her exploded into strength. You spun and threw yourself over your sister, using your broken body like a shield. You curled around her. Your back faced the oncoming breath of death. Splat! The instant that miasma slammed into your back, it felt like 1,000 red-hot needles stabbing you all at once. Your flesh sizzled with the sound of burning meat. You could feel your skin and muscles rotting, melting away. The force of the blast hurled both you and your sister across the air, slamming into a half-standing mud wall. Ah! The pain swallowed you whole like a tsunami. Darkness closed in, your throat filled with blood. You curled in on yourself, spasming uncontrollably. Your back was a mess of blood and charred meat. The pain was freezing, cutting to the bone. Your mind flickered on the edge of collapse. "Brother," a whisper, soft, tearful, crackled through like static, pulling you back from the brink. You forced open your blood-crusted eyes. Your sister was beneath you, shielded from that deadly strike, but her face was gray. her gaze unfocused. The pool of blood under her waist kept spreading. Her tiny hand trembled, fumbling inside her blood-soaked collar. She pulled out a small object, a bronze arrowhead, no longer than a knuckle, tied with a red string. It was rusted, its edges worn, but it gave off a quiet, ancient sharpness that defied its appearance. "Take it." She used the last of her strength to shove the cold arrowhead into your blood-stained hand. Her fingers were freezing. "That strange man gave it to me, said pure yang blood can destroy evil." Her voice was fading fast. Her gaze lost focus, but never left you. "Live, brother." Strange man. Your mind was a mess, but there was no time to think. Pure yang blood. Those 4 words struck your consciousness like lightning, slicing through the agony and despair. What was pure yang blood? A virgin boy, a maiden? The thought flashed like lightning. You jerked your head down to look at your sister. Her young face was already lifeless, pupils dilating. A tidal wave of grief ripping through your soul seized you. No! Not her. It can't be her. But reality was a cold blade. Her breath was fading fast. The hovering jiangshi seemed slightly surprised its previous attack hadn't finished the job. Its hollow face turned towards you both. The gaping mouth opened again, silent but more intense, as dense, black-gray miasma surged within. The power of destruction surged tenfold. This time, there would be no escape. Time froze. Everything slowed. The hunter's mangled corpse. Your sister's dying plea. The jiangshi's crushing aura. The icy bronze arrowhead. The phrase, "Pure yang blood can destroy evil." All these fragments clashed and reformed in your pain-flooded mind. A thought insane, blasphemous, wrapped in the flames of hell, wrapped around your heart like a venomous vine, squeezing the breath from you. Pure yang blood, your sister arrowhead life eye. There was no other choice. Overwhelming grief, boundless hatred, desperate survival instinct, hopelessness in protecting her, all these extremes fused into a single, searing blade that cut through the last of your humanity. "I'm sorry, little one." The growl in your throat was like a dying beast's whimper. Tears, mixed with blood, poured down your face. You threw your head up. No more hesitation, no more fear, only a cold, inhuman frenzy burned in your eyes. As the jiangshi's death breath was about to unleash, you moved. Faster than flesh should allow. Left hand clutching the icy bronze arrowhead. Right hand snatching your crude hunting bow from the ground. It was just hard wood and sinew, useless against a jiangshi, but right now, it was all you had. You didn't even look at her one last time. All your strength, all your pain, all your madness were poured into this one shot. You spun, pulled the crude bow taut. The bow groaned under the strain. A plain wooden arrow, just a sharpened stick, knocked tight. The target, your dying sister's chest. "Live." Her final words thundered in your ears like a trumpet of mourning. Thump! The sickening, muted sound of flesh tearing. The arrow flew, infused with your every ounce of power, with an unspeakable curse piercing her chest with surgical cruelty, right where her heart was. Time stopped. Her body jerked violently. Eyes that were about to go dim flew open wide in disbelief, locked onto yours. There was no hatred, only hollow confusion. Blood gushed like a spring, soaking through her coarse clothes, staining the death-dealing arrow red. The jiangshi's death breath erupted. That swirling mass of black-gray miasma burst like a broken dam, sweeping toward you and your dying sister with the power to erase all existence. And you smiled. Right as it was about to consume you, right before pain and despair tore your soul apart, you curled your lips into a twisted grin. It wasn't a smile of peace, not madness, but a cold declaration fueled by hellfire, hatred, sacrifice, and curses. Your hands didn't stop. The arrow through your sister's chest was merely one ritual step, nothing more. As the death flood surged to within 3 feet of your face, you dove forward. Your left hand, still holding the bronze arrowhead, drove it into the bloody wound on your sister's chest. Her searing hot blood, her final breath soaked the rusted tip. The blood seemed alive. When it touched bronze, there came a faint hiss like hot iron quenched in water. The dim carvings on the arrowhead lit up, glowing with a twisted, divine red-gold light. At the same time, your right hand flashed out, grabbing the end of the arrow still lodged in her chest and yanked. Schlick! The arrow tore free with blood and flesh. The bronze arrowhead, now saturated with pure yang blood and glowing red gold, locked firmly into the tip. At that moment, the jiangshi's death breath crashed down on you, a tidal wave of annihilation, vaporizing steel and soul alike. You didn't dodge. You couldn't dodge. Come on! With the last of your strength, you roared, a cry that shattered the soul. Facing the wave of death, facing the hovering bringer of doom, you pulled back the crude bow. The string stretched to its limit, creaking, about to snap. The limbs bent like an overloaded spring. The sister's blood on the arrowhead, under that oppressive death force, flared violently, the red, gold glow exploding, enveloping the arrowhead in a solid, blazing light, like a meteor of vengeance slicing through the dark. The string twanged. That arrow carrying your sister's blood, your curse, your life and soul shot forth. It didn't aim for the jiangshi's body. It cut a golden red arc through space, unwavering, aimed straight for the jade clasp, the life eye pulsing wildly in corpse gas on its chest. As the arrow flew, the jiangshi's death flood engulfed you. Your vision went black-gray, pure annihilation. You felt your skin, flesh, and bones disintegrating, vaporizing. The pain, unimaginable, lasted no more than a nanosecond. Your mind, like a candle in the wind, flickered, ready to go out. But in that final instant, before darkness took you forever, you saw it. That arrow, blazing with blood and fire, a spear of judgment thrown by fate itself, ignored all space, struck unerringly, driving into the wildly pulsing jade clasp on the jiangshi's chest, its life eye. Clang! A piercing, crystalline sound so sharp it could tear through a soul rang out across the death-shrouded ruins. It sounded as if it came from the beginning of time itself, carrying with it the shattering of some ancient law. Time froze. The hovering, twisted body of the jiangshi suddenly went rigid, as if bound by an invisible spell. On its chest, the jade clasped its life eye. The very core of its power was pierced clean through by the bronze arrowhead ablaze with pure yang blood. A thin, blinding crack shot across the smooth surface of the jade. The instant the crack appeared, the heart, like glow pulsing wildly inside the jade, froze, then exploded into an eruption of chaotic, blinding light. It was as if a miniature sun had detonated inside its body. Roar! A scream burst from its mouth, indescribable, laced with unbearable agony, shock, and pure destruction. No longer silent pressure, this was sound. Real sound. Like the screams of a billion lost souls, shrill and deafening, shaking the ruins to their foundations. Crumbling walls collapsed. The crack on the jade clasp spidered outward, flooding the jiangshi's shriveled, distorted body with that chaos-born light, making it look transparent. That skin of twisted metal and rotten wood began to split open, inch by inch. Thick, black vapor, reeking of death, spewed wildly from every rupture. Its floating body convulsed, twisted, swelled as if something inside was about to tear it apart from within. In the hollow pits of its face, emotion appeared for the first time, shock and disbelief. It raised its twig-thin arms, trying to wrench out the cursed arrow, but that flaming red-gold arrow was now fused with the shattered life eye, the core of its undoing. Its movements slowed, warped, every twitch bringing more cracks, more eruptions of black gas. The power that once brought death was now devouring it from within. And at the exact moment the arrow struck the life eye, the wave of death, miasma it had released, finally swallowed you whole. Pain. Unimaginable pain. Not of the flesh, but of your soul being torn apart, burned to ash by the filthiest of fires. You felt yourself unraveling, body, mind, memory dissolving under the annihilating force, like a sandcastle swallowed by the tide, like snow melting under a blazing sun. Your vision was filled with absolute darkness, swirling with chaotic black-gray miasma. Your hearing was drowned by the jiangshi's deafening screams and your own silent demise. Touch was gone. And yet just before your consciousness slipped into the void, a faint, sharp awareness, like a flickering star in endless dark, pierced the veil of destruction. You felt it. You felt the arrow, the one burning with your sister's pure yang blood, the one bearing all your curses penetrate its target. You felt the tiniest resistance, then the sharp crack of something hard breaking. The life eye had shattered. You felt the enormous, ancient, mountain-like entity that was the jiangshi falter. At the moment, the life eye broke. Its core, the thing that powered its endless death, lost balance, like a boulder dropped into a furnace. Its destructive force no longer radiated outward, it turned inward, mad, out of control. The indestructible beast began to collapse from within. You felt a massive, chaotic, death-bound will, equal in origin and in doom a dying beast's final cry that resonated with your own fading consciousness in the void. You smiled. In that final sliver before you were erased, when your soul was torn apart and scattered, you understood. Understood that this arrogant monster, the 1,000-year terror at the root of your nightmares, the one that devoured your village, that made you fire an arrow into your sister's chest, it was done, just like you. Gone. No sound, no form, but in that final instant of absolute annihilation, something beyond pain, beyond hate, even beyond sorrow, something cold, final, laced with endless mockery, smiled. And that smile rippled outward from the dying center of your being into ash. The raging black gas, like a berserk ink dragon, tore the jiangshi's fractured body apart, swallowing its twisted form in a storm of oblivion. The jade clasp, fused with the bronze arrowhead, burst in a blinding light, shattered into countless fragments, each burning with fading red-gold flame, scattered, then consumed by the maelstrom. The massive, hovering form of the jiangshi collapsed inward, as if all its support had been ripped away. There was no earth-shaking explosion, only a silent, total disintegration. The thick, black gas surged, forming a brief, enormous vortex, then imploded like a pierced bubble and vanished. All that remained was a scorched wasteland, blanketed in thick, corrosive, ash-gray residue like burnt paper settling silently on blood-soaked rubble. And where you had stood, there was nothing. No limbs, no blood, not even a trace of your existence remained. The jiangshi's breath of death, and your own being, were both erased completely. Only the broken remnants of your crude hunting bow remained, charred pieces scattered beside your sister's lifeless body. The wind, thick with the stench of blood, rot, and ash, wept across the dead land. The ruined walls whispered in the wind, like the sobs of ghosts. Beneath a collapsed beam, your sister lay still. The wound in her chest had dried, her face frozen in final bewilderment. Her tiny hand slightly curled, as if reaching for something. Time had lost all meaning here, perhaps days, perhaps months. A cold mountain rain washed over this land, soaked in blood and tears. It cleansed the surface grime, but could not erase the death soaked into the bones of the earth. At the village center, on a half-fallen stone cliff, the one struck by your final battle, strange markings began to show, slowly, as rain slid over the rock. They weren't natural markings, dark brown and deep red lines etched, as if by some invisible force into the rock itself, forming a vast and eerie mural. The image pulsed with a primitive, visceral tension. Dominating most of the mural was a massive, twisted, inhuman shape. It floated ominously, radiating a crushing aura of destruction. Beneath it, a much smaller human figure lunged upward in a final act of defiance, holding in hand a blinding light that looked sharp enough to tear through the darkness, aimed straight at the giant monster's core. The lines were rough, contorted, and wild, etched with a hatred and madness forged from life and soul, never to be erased. The small figure was frozen in that last, desperate strike, an image of mutual destruction. The monstrous shadow, pierced at its center, frozen in collapse and chaos. No words, no explanation. Only this mural, burned into stone by blood and fire, hatred and death telling in silence a story long devoured by time, forgotten by all, echoing in the ruins of a dead village, beneath the howling wind. Rain fell on the stone, washing over the mural, but those dark red and brown lines only grew clearer, like they had seeped into the marrow of the rock itself, an eternal mark left on this land of death.